My name is Soraya, and you are listening to Wild Roots. In this episode, we are going to be speaking with an amazing young conservationist from Australia named Elliot Connor. Elliot is considered a conservation optimist who is, quote, trying to look on the bright side of global catastrophe, and is working on numerous projects aimed at protecting nature. Elliot believes that humans should embrace the fact that we do not have any greater right to live on this earth than any other creature, no matter how small. In this discussion, Elliot shares his vision for the world. So let's join Elliot's journey in creating a collaborative effort to preserving Earth's amazing biodiversity. So if you can give us an introduction, I would love to know, who is Elliot Connor?
Who is Elliot Connor? Good question. So at heart, I'm sort of environmentalist with a sideline passion for photography, caring for wild animals. Bits and pieces. I was just actually looking after tawny frogmouth, so like an sort of owl-like bird, beautiful, beautiful. It's an immature individual actually. That I brought in from this animal rescue organisation. I do some volunteering work with yesterday. We've named him Hamlet, and he's quite adorable. So that's really good fun. Giving him his morning feed. But at heart, I'm working in that environmental space. Still a student, so last year of schooling, and been quite heavily involved with the sort of stuff I do for the past 2.5 years or so now. Started with volunteering at BirdLife Australia. They have a discovery centre. It's like a mini museum at a local park here called Olympic Park, and that went fine. It wasn't perfect by any means. So working with lots of old retired people, I imagine the average age of volunteers and the folks that came through, your sort of audience there was probably 70, 75. So the whole naturalist nature appreciation scheme in Australia is a bit distorted. But I've always been drawn to that side of things. So I like to say I've been sort of camera trapping with bandicoots. I taught an owl how to fly this January. So I was volunteering in France for a month, which was good fun, apart from that I froze my fingers off. It's not quite your summer holiday for Australian.
Mm-hmm.
But I get involved around the place and really enjoy what I do.
It sure sounds like you've had a lot of involvement. So Elliot, what is Human Nature Projects and how did it come about?
So Human Nature Projects started late June this year, and the premise behind it, as I mentioned sort of in passing, was that my experience through volunteering in environmentalism in nature conservation was that it misses on a few crucial points. So I don't think it adequately engages the public more broadly. And that's obviously a huge missed opportunity because many of the problems that we struggle through working in this field, sort of resource shortages, your lack of media attention, being washed out by the whole climate change dialogue, which is equally important, but we're not being representatively sampled in media, in publications. So trying to get ourselves heard in this space, get the support we need, that all relies on having a faction of the public who understand what we do and who are willing to participate in it, to get involved. So put simply, Human Nature Projects is a means of engaging communities in wildlife conservation, putting sort of people before planet in this whole scheme of things as we try and protect these wild places.
So already, from what I know about you, from what I've read, I think that we share this concept of what humanity truly means. And I speak of humanity not the way that most people speak of the sense, but rather that human animal nature that knows inherently that we cannot thrive without the other life forms in which we share this world. And I feel like this is what your message is with the Human Nature Projects. And but I would like for you to share with us your vision. So what is Human Nature Project's main mission, and how does it go about to reach out to the public?
Yes, so Human Nature Projects effectively is our entry point into the field, allowing those dialogues to folks who might not necessarily be previously interested or involved in the field. For me, obviously, starting out, it wasn't easy. As a minor, you get through all this endless layers of bureaucracy, so it's definitely quite a challenge to work it all out, and acting as that sort of simplifying factor to the whole equation, I think, is really necessary. So yeah, in its essence, Human Nature Projects is a rapidly growing network of normal people like myself who are just interested in helping out the world, who have this passion for what we do and want to share it with a much wider audience. And I mean, you bring up like what is humanity, and obviously that's such a huge question, and it's important that we do tackle it, especially at this critical stage in the Earth's history and our history as mankind. So there's been so many explanations. So previously we were like tool users, this much more sophisticated, intelligent sort of life form. Obviously Jane Goodall did lots of work trying to dispel those ideas. Nowadays it's sort of more vague. I've heard a sort of circle of compassion, that we can feel empathy towards more living creatures. But I mean, when you look at what we're doing to the planet, you sort of doubt it. So
No.
It's a really tough one.
It is very tough. And again, I think that it is with our true humanity intact that we can better protect the planet's life forms and the planet itself. I like to relate humanity to species typicality because as the human animals that we are, we somehow have resisted our innateness, and I find it very important to pay attention to the creatures around us who have their species typical behaviors intact. It really shows a great deal that the web of life can work quite beautifully together.
Definitely.
So let's talk a little bit about your photography. Your photography is beautiful, and it really reflects your love for the natural world and the creatures that inhabit this world. And it really is portrayed through your beautiful photography. So how did you get into photography, and where is that taking you?
Yeah, another tough question. I guess with all these things, it's quite a sort of gradual progression. My family's British, so that helps. Over there, much larger and more widespread sort of nature appreciation, wildlife scheme. Folks getting out into the countryside, obviously BBC Wildlife and the likes, doing great work over there. So that sort of led me on to this path, and the photography is my sort of natural expression of that. Always interested, always taken that passion for portraying wildlife in these digital forms. When I was about 10, 11, I went on a trip for a term, so a school term, about 2 months around Africa, Southern Africa, sort of South Africa, Botswana, up to Zambia. So around those few countries, and that was amazing. That really sparked it all off. I did plenty of photography on that trip, but gradually upgrading my gear, and with improved technology, improved facilities, gradually making progress, making space in the field, hoping to go into wildlife filmmaking later on, but obviously a hugely challenging area to make it in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really important, the work that photographers, conservation photographers and wildlife filmmakers, natural history documentary producers do in allowing a wider audience to access these natural spectacles, which most of us don't get to see. And there's so much wildlife just around us we don't appreciate. So it's, yeah.
Field photography is definitely important work. So is there anything else you might like to add, anything you might like to share with the world today through Wild Roots?
Ooh, I think the main message I'd like to get across, besides what's been said, is the role of youth in this whole dialogue. I'm sure with some of the folks you've spoken to, it's come up time and time again, but it's a real tough one to integrate young people like myself into some of the dialogues which do exist. I think we're doing it increasingly as the years go by, better and better. So, yeah, I'd just say we need to keep this up, keep moving forward in integrating this intergenerational learning in the sort of work we do in the networks we're involved in. I've just been working with Christopher Coalition Wild. They're doing a mentorship program for the Wild 11. So having those opportunities to link up between these different age groups. Obviously, being a naturalist is this wealth of experience. So having the old folks who I'm good friends with, but being able to share some of their learnings, some of their passion with the younger generation, I think is critical at this stage to be able to move forward and sort of pass over the torch, so to speak, from the Attenboroughs, from the Goodalls, Durrells, whatever it might be. I think that would be my message, yes.
Well said. So Elliot, do you have a special connection or special experience that you have made in nature or with an animal that you would like to share with us today?
Okay, so yeah, obviously doing wildlife caring is quite a connection. You grow very deeply emotionally attached to some of the animals you work alongside, you rehabilitate. So it's not easy to choose. I guess the experience that really put me in my place, allowed me to gain this perspective on the natural world, was during this Africa trip I mentioned. So a good 5-6 years ago. And I was in a quite a remote campsite in Botswana. It's called Kwai Camp, and it's all unfenced, so the wildlife's walking through and the likes. I was actually walking back from the toilet block, which was on the other side of the campground. And it's quite a way away, so about a 5-minute walk. Just reached the end of the sort of edge of the campsite with the big fire circle, with the 4-wheel drive, the rooftop tent. And I sort of had this sixth sense. I turned around, and behind me, about probably less than 2 meters away, was a leopard. So a young leopard crouched low to the ground, and it was just watching me. So
wow,
yeah, quite a scary experience in many ways, but it makes you remember that we're all part of this sort of circle of life. We're deeply connected with other life forms, and we need to appreciate that. We need to respect that we have no greater right to be on this planet than any other tawny frogmouth or a leopard or whatever it might be. There's a great Attenborough quote along those lines. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but yeah, we need to respect other life forms in that way, and being able to have that really close scrape, I guess, with this young leopard in Botswana is definitely something I'll take with me, remember, going forward through the years.
As Elliot mentions in our discussion, we are heavily focused on the climate crisis, and that is a good thing. But there is something missing. We need to shift our views to an awareness of our interconnectedness with the living beings around us as an ultimate goal. It's a vision I think Elliot and I share wholeheartedly, because for people like us, we have always believed this to be true. This awareness that we are truly intertwined with this amazing living earth. With that view, we would naturally live more sustainably, knowing that we share this world with beings just as important as ourselves. It would be out of the question to live otherwise. Our work would be to care for nature. Youth activists today speak with a moral clarity that is so often lacking in our elected officials. These youths know what they are fighting for. They know what matters most. Yet, unfortunately, as minors, they cannot vote. They can only advocate. I am listening, and you should be too. Elliot's vision is a simple one, and is what he calls the 4 C's to conservation, to encourage connection, curiosity, creativity, and collaboration in efforts to preserving Earth's amazing biodiversity. To learn more about Elliot and the Human Nature Projects, you can visit his website at elliotconnor.com and humannatureprojects.org. This is Wild Roots. Thanks for listening.